Welcome back to Builders, everybody. I so appreciate you guys joining us each week. We're in our mindset series. If you guys haven't been following along, we recommend going back and starting from the beginning and watching those. But today we have on some really special guests again. They've done a couple podcasts with us and they have just been incredible. These two are incredible people, and I'm so excited to hear from them from another point of passion that they like to share. And so these two just have so much wisdom, and they have classes and courses you can take to hear that wisdom from them. And I'm just so thankful for you guys to come on again. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We're glad to be here.
So yeah, for those that don't know, we'll probably, if you would, this is Kylan and Rebecca Crawford. We met them back in Omaha, Nebraska at a mutual church we went to, and we had them on early, like Madison said. So if you want to hear the full background of Kylan and Rebecca and their story, go back and listen to our other podcast session that we had on with them. But maybe just to catch our listeners up, Kylan and Rebecca, maybe just give us a brief background of who you guys are, your family, and then we'll kind of jump into to our mindset series.
Absolutely. So we are Kylan and Rebecca Crawford, of course. Been married for 18 years.
18 and a half years.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And we have two boys who are always keeping us on our toes. They're 10 and 8, Isaiah and Benjamin. We're thankful for them. And a lot of what we do and what we share is really out of wanting to help them in their life down the road and pour into others that others may pour into them down the road. But we've been married 18 years, and we really started our journey probably when it comes to just finding out what we were passionate about together was just through just life experiences, realizing that we didn't have our money together when we totally figured out when we first got married, right? We didn't have our best lives figured out when we first got married, right?
No, we did not.
And we've just spent the last 18 years building our best lives and creating content, information, books, doing conferences, seminars, hosting them ourselves, just building information out there to share with the world to help people get to a better place in life so that they're not dependent upon any one person or system, but they find themselves to be a true ecosystem of not just wisdom and knowledge, but also money and being able to sustain what it is they want to do as a family. What would you add, babe?
I would just say, I think we came to this point in our marriage where we looked at each other and said, we don't think this is how we're supposed to live. There's got to be something better. And we just kind of pursued it. So we recognized there was a problem, but we didn't just complain or talk about the problem. We were like, there's got to be an answer. And if you don't know me by nature, I am a problem solver. Like at work, they always give me the problems that they're having at work. So what are the biggest issues we're having? Give it to Rebecca, because I can't not solve a problem. I will look at it for days, weeks, however long it takes until we get that thing fixed. So I think it was like almost like a challenge, like it's not working. Well, let's figure it out.
Yeah. And I mean, from a profession, that's us in a nutshell, but we also have professional lives as well. So I'm an executive at a transportation company, and
I do benefits and financial wellness at a local hospital.
So yeah, so we do that. We have businesses, and we're out in the workforce, sharing our gifts there as well.
Yeah. And like he said, if you want more of the backstory from them, we recommend watching their other episodes that they were on here. But we're going to kind of jump in. But before we do that, I want to mention, so Kylan mentioned Building Your Best Life. That is one of the books that they have out there. And so it's available on Amazon, and we'll link all of that below. But just wanted to give credit to that, of their book that's out there. And they also have a course, but we're going to kind of brief into that a little bit later in this episode. So starting off, because we're in our mindset series, would you guys define in your definition, like what a mindset is?
I would say a mindset is a subconscious way that you think, that you might not always even be aware that it's the system process running in the background, but it's like that. I think a mindset is like, if you ever hit Control Alt Delete on your computer and you look at what's running in the background, that's a mindset. It's that thing running in the background that subconsciously and unconsciously controls how and what you think about things that happen.
That's good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't add anything to that.
Yeah.
She said it.
So as far as mindsets, now that we have the definition, like what are some types of mindsets that you guys have seen through coaching, just coaching people, mindsets that you guys have had to change? What are some of those?
I think one of the biggest mindsets that stick out for me, only because I had one of my own, is the poverty mindset, right? And that is rooted in lack and not enough, trying to make ends meet, robbing Peter to pay Paul. And that one sticks out to me the most because, again, that's kind of how I grew up. And you find out when you talk to people how they think, right? And they tell you how they think by their responses to certain things you may do or certain things they see, right? And so it's not just about perspective, it's how they think. And as they share that, you start to realize especially if you start talking about money, or sometimes even talk about family, you can start to see the poverty mindset people have when it comes to those things, because they don't have an answer for poverty. So now in everything they do, whether they're at work, whether they're at a birthday party, no matter where they are, they can be operating out of this mindset of poverty, and it just kind of creeps into every area of your life, and can be quite detrimental to a lot of your relationships when you're not realizing that, if you're operating out of that mindset of poverty.
And I guess, so when I was thinking about these kind of mindsets, I also was thinking the same thing about Kylan's thinking. I think there's only kind of two financial mindsets. There's either a poverty mindset or a wealth mindset. And so to what Kylan's saying about, there's a poverty mindset that you can have for yourself, but I think some people actually have poverty mindsets for other people.
Sure.
Like they think in their mind, I can have more, but not you. So there's this idea, but ultimately that's still a poverty mindset, because poverty in itself is this idea that there's simply not enough. So if there's not enough, then I might think I need to hoard everything I have so that you can't take my stuff. I might think that I need to get my piece, because if you get promoted, you took something from me. If you get that house, you took something from me. And so I think that a lot of us are exposed to this idea of poverty, and sometimes we internalize it and we make it seem like, well, then I can never have enough. But sometimes we externalize it and we try to almost portray it onto other people, like, well, they can't have any more, they shouldn't move up because that was mine. And I think that's kind of where that dog eat dog world comes from in the corporate mindset, where it's like, I have to fight you for this promotion, because if I don't fight you, you'll take what's mine. And that's a very limiting mindset, because that's actually what it does. It just puts limits on people, whether it's limits on you, limits on me, limits on other people. We're limiting where you can live, what you can drive, what you can have, how you get to interact with the world. That's kind of the whole premise behind poverty mindsets. It's basically saying this group of people can go here and you can have this and you can live that life. And sometimes I think it's in subconscious, but sometimes I think it's been intentional.
No, that's so good. That is so good. I was going to ask too, following up, like, do you think it starts from the external, or do you think it starts from internally having that poverty mindset set?
I think it depends on how you grew up.
Yeah.
I think you catch the mindsets around you. So if you are taught that we are wealthy and they, whoever they is, are not, you're going to catch that externalizing poverty onto other people. But if you grow up with the we are poor, then you catch that mindset where whether you want to or not, we pick up the things that we learn at home, the things, and we catch more than is actually taught. So it's, no one has to actually sit us down and say we are poor. We just see it happen. We witness what happens all around us. We watch people and how they interact. We hear people say things like money doesn't grow on trees, or don't even ask for me for anything when you get in the store because you know there's not enough money. You hear things, and that teaches you whether there's enough or whether there's not enough.
Yeah, it's a lot. I think it's a lot external, right? People are born into the situations they're born in, but they don't have necessarily any control over those situations, right? So in our minds, at least in mine for sure, a poverty mindset is taught, it's experienced, right? And then, they say, as the Romans do, right? Whatever happens in your household, whatever culture you set there, that's how the rest of your family will act in majority of the cases. There might be an outlier that breaks out of that mold and does something different. But generally speaking, when it comes to mindsets, they say birds of the same feather flock together, right? So those people will tend to migrate and be together. And if you look at statistics, typically, if you are born into poverty, it's most likely that you're going to end up living within 5 to 7 miles of the home you grew up in.
Wow.
So if you grow up in poverty, right, to live further, more than 5 miles away from that address is like highly unlikely.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So what's interesting is, we talk about mindsets, kind of like you're talking about, grow up into it. And most people don't even realize that it's a mindset that they're operating in, right? And so how does one, like you guys have a story? I mean, I have a story as well, but how do you guys get to the point? When did you get to the point where you realize, okay, I was thinking this way and I see that happening, but now I realize there's another way, there's another mindset, and then to identify it and then make changes in it? Is there, what part of your story, or can you share a little bit of your story to take us from that, what you're talking about, growing up in this with this one way of thinking, all of a sudden what happened where you saw something else, the change, and then kind of take us through your story?
Sure. I think for me, the turning point was, I'll give credit where credit is due, right? My mother was really big on, even though we might live in an impoverished area, we're living in the projects, she made sure that we didn't become like the culture where we were. So we couldn't talk like everyone talked outside in the house, right? So that was one. But what really pushed me past that threshold of just knowing that there's got to be something different, because mom is teaching us different than where we live, was when my first experience as a young man. I think I went to a friend's house in high school, and I lived in an impoverished neighborhood, and I went to his house, and he lived in a very wealthy neighborhood, right? In a very large house, and I'm talking, 7,000-8,000 square feet, and I'm like, so I go to this guy's house, and I'm like looking around, and they've got very nice vehicles. His mom didn't work because she didn't want to, right? And didn't have to. There was peace in the house. You opened their fridge, and there was, all kinds of food. And like in my household, it's a running joke, and it's funny, but it's true. For me, a sign of wealth is having fresh fruits and vegetables. So for me, it's almost like it's a reminder of when I see a basket of fruit in my house today, that reminds me that I've made it to a place where there wasn't a case where all we could afford was maybe a couple of delicious red apples, right? The ones you bite in and they turn brown as soon as you bite out of them. You don't want to eat it. They turn out mushy. Yeah, those. So seeing that at this guy's house and realizing, wow. And I asked his dad, what do you do? And I honestly don't remember what he said to me. I was just so astonished by where they live. So that in my mind, I was like, I got to do something different. So from there, what that kind of propelled me into searching, because what was around me in my culture, in my household, even in all of my family, there wasn't anyone talking about how do you change your mindset? How do you get out of this?
Mhm.
So I began searching information. I began looking at other families that weren't like mine, that seem to be doing well, that seem to be, they're going on vacations and they're doing great things. And they seem like they're having a great time and they really enjoy what they do with their lives. So I began finding those people and then asking them, how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
They're like, what are you talking about? How do you do what you do? Your wife is happy, your kids are happy. They're not perfect, but you live in this really nice house. You have really nice things. Everything seems to be going well for you. How did you do that? And they would share with me their perspective. And then I go to another family and ask them. And then I got around mentors. I'm like, how did you do that? And it was really that simple. I just kept asking the question. So when I found out what they did, I didn't try to reinvent the wheel. I was like, well, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah, so good.
What about you, Rebecca? What was your story, the turning point?
Oh,
in your
I am
mindset?
that kid that some parents don't like to see coming. And I say that because I usually spoke my mind. If you are not surprised, I hope you're not surprised I spoke my mind. But I used to read a lot, and I went to a private school, went to church. That was like my whole circle growing up, was that. And so the only book that was always available was the Bible. So I read it because I'm a reader, and that's what I do. I read books, and when there's nothing else available, I read the Bible. And I remember reading about this guy named Abraham and reading that he was very rich. And I remember looking around my house one day and saying, how come we're not very rich? And I'm not sure what my parents told me, but something just kind of stuck with me, like, but he's like the leader of our faith. Like, they call him the founder of our faith, and he was rich. How come I can't be rich? Like, why can't, like, his kid was rich, his grandkids were rich, his great grandkids took back from a whole, the country that they were enslaved to. They took everything out with them. And I was like, I just want a little bit of something. And so to me, I guess I always kind of fought this idea that just because it was what I saw, I knew there was something else. And I didn't let that go, even though that's not what I experienced. It was like, I kept seeing glimpses of, there's gotta be more, there's gotta be more, there's gotta be more. And I'm kind of like that person that just keeps poking at, like, there's a hole in this theory here. Like, this is a veil that's just in front of me. And if I keep poking, eventually I'm going to pull back the curtain. And I wouldn't accept it. I just would not accept that I was stuck in this perpetually unhappy life. I mean, my parents did the best they can, but we're both the oldest children to very young parents. His mother was 17 when she had him. My parents were 19 and 21. So they were fresh out of high school when they got married. And I was born the day they got married, like 4 hours after they got married.
Same day.
Wow.
Same year, same day, same year. Like, she's in labor, getting married, and then she goes to the hospital and has me. And so I watched my parents struggle. I watched them go through a lot of tough things because they didn't have a college education. And they didn't have a trade that they learned. So I watched them struggle, and I just kept thinking, this is not all there is. And so I think the mindset piece to me was like that idea of, I'm just going to keep asking questions. Like Kylan said, keep asking questions, looking for people who had something I didn't have. And I just kept asking. And I was like, whenever I could get around anyone who looked like they were making it, I was like, can we go out? Can we have lunch? Can we have breakfast? Can I come over your house? I didn't want anything from them. I just wanted to hear them talk. I wanted to know, what did you do? How did you get here? Because I knew that they were obviously making some different decisions than I was making.
Yeah. I think one of the big things with this whole idea of mindsets and how do you change is there usually is a meeting of the minds, if you will. You come to a point in your life where you're like, there's got to be more than this.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that, if it should spark a research type of behavior where you're constantly looking for the answer so that you can apply it to your own life. So you have to be very inquisitive in order to get the information you want, because there's some people that just won't share it, or they will share it a roundabout way, which is part of the reason why I would find other families and say, okay, how'd you do it? And how'd you do it? And I found out there were different ways to do some things, but there was a common thread amongst all of them, right? And why they were successful. So there was this inquisitiveness and research, right? They didn't act like they knew everything. So, right. The other behavior I saw was that they hung out or spent time with someone that knew more than they did.
Mm-hmm.
So their circle was not just peers or mentees, but their circle also included people that were at a higher level than they were.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that was the other thing that I noticed that was a common thread around them.
Mm-hmm.
And then also there was this drive. There was this huge drive in all these people I talked to, that they did not want. They wanted more for their family than what others thought they should have.
And do you also think it was also whatever we've done so far, we can do better?
Yes.
It was like this perpetual, we have never arrived yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We can see that while we did good here, like that book, like that good is the enemy of great. Like you can't just, well, I did good.
Right.
But ultimately, I mean, Earl Nightingale actually talked about this. Is the definition of success is that you are going towards a specific goal and that you're aiming for. And so when you meet that goal, the next thing would be to set a new goal.
Right.
I mean, not just to be like, oh, I did it. You know, I graduated college. I'm done with life. You know, I did it. Like we have to keep moving up in levels. And it was like perpetual thirst for more, like, and not like more because I need to hoard it, but more because I can be better, more because I can see things differently. I could have handled that differently. And that I think is the mindset I think that we kept noticing, which really is more of like a wealth mindset, which is this idea that there's always enough. There's enough for everyone. Like I don't think that all the money that's available to this planet has even been created yet. And when I say created, I don't mean minted. I don't mean someone stamping. I mean, I think there are more things that we could come up with ideas to do that would create income, that would create assets. But it's when we get stuck in this idea of competition that we leave the realm of creativity. And creativity is where money is actually created, because if you can get creative, I don't have to think about what you're doing. If I'm creative, I'm thinking about what's in my mind that answers a problem that's in somebody else's life.
Creativity kills, excuse me. Yeah.
Creativity trumps competition.
Competition kills creativity is what I usually say. That's what kills creativity.
I think, I mean, that's so good. All of that. A couple questions for me.
Sure.
No, I think so. From both of your guys' stories, I heard that like you guys were constantly searching, curious. Like, so for me and my generation, like, where did you go to kind of find those people? Was it church? Was it groups? Like, were you intentional about going to places where you knew these people would be? Like where did you kind of go for these things?
Well, I'm going to tell your generation, you have something we didn't have. We did not have Google. Google was invented while we were alive, so much so that I'll ask him questions and he's like, why are you asking me? Please ask Google.
Google
it. Why are you asking me? You can find out.
I would say, look at the people that are in your life already, because usually you don't always have to go thousands of miles away to find someone that can help you. You can look at the people that are in your family, like look at your most successful family member you have, whatever success means to you. So everyone's got that one person where that person is doing well in their health. I'm going to talk to them about health. That person is doing well in their relationship. I'll talk to them about this. This person is doing well in finance. I'll talk to them about that. So looking for people in your immediate circle, because you're probably going to have a connection built already. Then yes, we did look at people in our church. Everyone's not going to let you into their private inner circle, and they shouldn't, not initially. You should have to earn your way into people's living rooms, because that's their personal private space. And so I think you prove that by the conversations you have when you're around them, the intelligent questions you ask, sometimes even the unintelligent questions that we ask, but ultimately just making sure they understand, like, you mean something to me. I want to be around you. I want to talk to you because there's something in your life that I would like in mine. And I think that we can help you. But I think it's also important, and I'll let you answer this question, but that you pay attention to people who actually also see something in you. Because sometimes I've experienced pursuing relationships with people who did not want to be in relationship with me. They don't work. Like, attraction is not just for marital or boyfriend girlfriend relationships, it's
Yeah.
also for friendships. There is a level of attraction
That's right.
that you feel connected to somebody from across the room, like, that's my friend. Have you ever experienced that? Like, you met someone, you're like, you're gonna be my friend. You might not know it yet, but we're gonna be friends. I think you have to move on those levels. What else would you say?
I actually had a funny story on that. One of the guys I when I moved down here, I was working with, and I had invited him out to lunch, and we had so much in common. He kept like putting me off. I'm like, look, I said, we're gonna go to lunch whether you like it or not one of these days. I just know that we have a connection, so you might as well just buckle up and let's go to lunch. And today he's one of my best friends down here, and we just have a great connection. But yeah, it's like that exact thing you say. It's just like almost an instant connection.
Mm-hmm.
Some relationships you'll never meet physically, right? So some mentorships are sought out just because you're seeking their and following their information, right? So we did that as well. So it wasn't just mentorships that we have mentorships. I have mentorships that those people don't even know I exist, but I buy their information, I buy their content, I learn from it, I apply it to my life. I'll go to a conference, I consume their information because I'm trying to learn what they know and apply it to my life. So that's another thing you can do, because technology is such a great tool and asset in today's world. You don't have to travel all the way across the world to participate in a global seminar or a business class or a mentorship program. I mean, they exist. I mean, I mentor people all over the country virtually. I don't, some of them were like, you didn't even know I existed, but I found you, and now I want you. So I'm meeting with them on, FaceTime, and we're having monthly calls, things like that. But sometimes you will end up meeting those people, but some of those people will never know who you are. So you got to be okay with that and be okay with using technology to your advantage to get the information you need.
So following up on that specifically, I'd love for you to share on like your knowledge thing that you talk about, because for some people they consume and consume and consume, but never really do anything about it. So if you would share what you talk about with knowledge.
Absolutely. There is a fallacy that is out there in the world that you hear it. There's quotes put out there on it. You can Google them, right? And it's the saying that knowledge is power,
Yeah.
right? And that's not true. And people are like, how can you say that? And they're quoting all these great philosophers. I'm like, knowledge isn't power. Knowledge is potential. Right. So you can know what to do, but if you never do it, it was never put into action. So it goes back to that theory that you find in physics, right? that there's potential energy, right? Right? It has potential, but the energy isn't realized until action happens. So when you take knowledge or information and you don't apply it, you're just being an information hoarder. So in my mind, I see people like that no different than those you see on those unfortunate people that are dealing with life circumstances and hurts in the show hoarders, right? They've got things just all in their houses, and they can't walk through their houses, right? I see it the same way for people that just keep consuming information but never applying really anything. They're just collecting information. They're information hoarders, and it's not any benefit to them or anyone else until they begin to apply it, because applied knowledge is what wisdom is.
And that's where real power.
And that's where the real power is, when you apply what you know.
So good. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
So now we're going to kind of transition from mindsets to more financial specific mindsets, because I know that's an area that you guys are very, very passionate about. So I know, did you have anything to say before we transition, Dad?
Well, no, I just wanted to, you had mentioned about mentorships and people learning and never get to this point where you're never done learning. And I mean, I'm the same way. And so when I heard that Kylan and Rebecca were releasing their Money Masters program, I'm like, I got to get into this, because I want to hear what you guys have learned. And I feel that you guys had something valuable to share. And I'm like, I know I can learn, and I want to learn from you guys. And so we're like, I said, Riley, Madison, you guys got to sign up on your own. We all signed up, made them pay for themselves because that's what you said.
Yeah.
So Riley
Which I
and-
was gonna sign up before he told me to.
Yeah.
It's just letting.
like you guys each need to pay your own way and get on here because they got a lot of good stuff to share. And so and that's why I want to kind of finish up the rest of this episode. Kind of what Madison was talking about. A couple of things that you guys had mentioned in that series. One of them about it's kind of like how you change your mindset. So kind of segueing from mindsets kind of into your one of the topics on financialists about taking ownership of your mindset. So that's one thing that you had talked about. I was wondering if you could elaborate maybe a little bit, share with our audience about, because I don't want to make this a mini Money Masters, but if I could pull out a little bit more wisdom on, and comment for our audience about what taking ownership of those mindsets and stop blaming other people.
Well, I would say when it comes to that, so let's think about it logically. So every one of us was born as a child into a family situation. You did not get to pick whether your family was rich or poor. You had no control over those situations. You were just brought into it. So we realized that. But what we've also realized is of all the people who would come talk to us and even ourselves, there was always two different kinds of people. There'd be the kind of people who would be like, okay, this is what's happening and we want to fix it. And there'd be some people who would just be like, well, it's not my fault. My mom did this, my dad did this, my aunt did this, my grandma did this. And so at some point when we realized the difference between the people who started to make a difference and the people who stayed in the exact same position were the people who decided, you're right, I had no control over what happened previously. However, I have total control over what happens going forward. And so one thing that we've really paid attention to, like every leadership program we've ever gone to, the first thing they always talk about is this idea of making a decision, this idea of you stepping out and saying, I'm going to draw, I know there's lines in the sand, I'm going to draw my own line in the sand. I'm going to own where I am. I might not have made every decision that brought me up to this point, but I'm going to own every decision that I'm making from this point forward. And in order to do that, I've got to stop looking backwards and pointing blame on people and truly be willing to say, I might not have been the person that got me here, but I'm the person that's going to take me where I'm going.
Yeah, that's good. And I want to add to that because there's this idea and concept that you can't change your circumstances, right? That it's almost like people feel like they're born into a class and they can't work their way out of it. Right. So part of that ownership thing of owning where you are is also owning the mistakes of those that made them before you. Right. You have to. So yes, my mom didn't do the greatest job in everything. No parent is perfect. I'm not perfect as a parent, right? I make mistakes. And I'm sure one day my kids will have the same conversation. Like, my dad did a good job. He did a great job, but he was not perfect. He didn't do everything right, right? But me owning not the mistakes and identifying them, but just saying, I'm going to own the position I'm in as a person, but also own the position I'm in this family. And then turning that around and saying, okay, because I've seen the experiences of those in my family in the past, right? I'm not going to allow those people to determine my future. I'm going to use what good they did.
Yes.
And apply it to my life and make sure that the people that come out of me, right, moving forward, any children I may have or any nieces and nephews, that they don't make those same mistakes because I'm living a better example. So that the generations in our family continue to improve rather than get worse.
Yeah, that's good. That's so good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's legacy right there. But also, so you guys mentioned something else that's really stuck out when we took your course was you guys mentioned that there's 3 people within your finances. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on the mindsets that those 3 people carry. and that, yeah.
Sure. Well, there's 3 people in your finances in every area of your life. The key is to operate from the right person, not all 3.
Mhm.
There is your past you. The past you is the person who has made silly mistakes financially, who has made some dumb financial decisions, who has not saved money when they should have, who spent money when they should have invested, those types of things. That's the past you. That's the past you is said, I'm going to go ahead and put 3% in my 401k only, right? Those decisions are not, so it's not necessarily all the bad decisions, but it's all decisions in the past that you have no control over.
Anymore. No more control.
You can't go back and fix what you did in the past.
Right.
So that past you, it exists out there, and it's relevant because that person has made decisions
that you're living
with right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's the present you. The present you is the person that has probably the most control over all your situations.
Yep.
But before we talk about the present person, we have to talk about the future person, right? Because if the person today, who you are now, is going to make the right decisions, they have to understand where they want to be in the future. And you do that because you already know what the consequences are of poor financial decisions, or not the wisest ones, because you're living in some that might be right now, or you're experiencing things that you might have went back and says, I could have done that a lot better if I had have done this or done that.
Yeah.
So you have to look in the future and say, what is it that I really want in my future? What is it that I want to live by? Where do I want to live? How do I want to live? You know, all those types of things. What are my financial goals? What are my family goals? And then once you identify those, present day, you today can make decisions, can make plans, can put together spreadsheets and all kinds of things to make steps towards reaching future you's goals. What would you add?
I would add, when we were writing this program, I kept saying there's people in this, there's people we need to talk about. And at first I'm like, everyone's going to think we're talking about like their parents or their siblings or their cousins or anyone else asking for money. But really the thing that just kept like resurfacing as we'd be writing, and then we'd be like, but there's something there. And I was like, how do we put this into words? I think too many people get caught up in their past mistakes. They get caught up in, oh, I screwed this up. I did this, or I didn't do this. They get caught up in their shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And I already did that. I've already been there and I already screwed it all up. Or they get too far into the future to be like, oh, how am I ever going to retire with $5 million? How am I going to stop working? How am I going to do those? And what they're missing is that the most powerful person in this equation is the one that's alive right now. Because this person can correct those mistakes and set that person up for success.
Right. Simply
by managing what's happening right now. But when we make poor financial decisions, like lots of debts, not enough savings, then our present self isn't in control of our present money. Because somebody used to describe that debt was mortgaging your future. And that's exactly what it is. When you sign up for debts, like 5 years ago, not pointing to you, but 5 years ago, 5 years ago, I made the decision that I'm going to sign up for this debt. I'm not thinking about me in the future. I'm thinking about me right now. I'm not thinking about, am I going to look back on this decision and be like, that was not the smartest thing. I'm not thinking about the future. I'm only thinking about where I am right now. And so one thing that we really challenged ourselves and everyone who goes through our program is every expenditure you make, especially one that goes into the future. So if it's going to be something you pay more than one time, are you going to look back on this situation with regret or with, what's the opposite of regret? Like excitement, like, oh, thank God you did that. Like, because what's a horrible thing is to consistently live in this perpetual state of regret with yourself. That is a horrible place to live. And a lot of people live there when it comes to finances. And if I keep disappointing myself, you know, month after month after year, I'll eventually stop believing that I can make good financial decisions.
You'll give up.
And that's what we don't want to happen.
Right.
And so that's where part of it is taking ownership and saying, I need to stop. I've been setting my own self up for disappointment.
Right. Well, even after you take that ownership, I would say that was the first step. But then, like, why is it so important to change the mindset? So even if you get out of debt, you don't get back into it. Like, talk to us about why it's so important to change that financial mindset, your mindset around money.
The habits that you have today are the results of how you think.
Mm.
So in order to, you have to continue learn and changing your mindset, because it's what's forcing your behaviors. There's a proverb that says, as a man thinks, that is who he is. So if your mindset is one of poverty and scarcity, fearful, no risk taking, then you will reap the fruits of that type of thinking, because of how you think. That is how you're going to behave and act.
Right.
But if you behave and act as if, right, not out of fear, but out of joy, out of a wealth mindset, thinking that there is a source, understanding that you were created and funded, and what is yours, no one else can have. And if they do have it, when you get to that point in your life, they have to give it up. That's really how it works. I mean, people think, oh no, they live. No, I mean, that's not true. The neighborhood that we moved out of, funny enough, I went trick-or-treating in that neighborhood as a kid, and I thought, what do these people do for a living? I thought these people, I was like, I don't even know how you afford a house like this, right? I end up moving into the neighborhood 30 years later, or 25 years later, in the very neighborhood I thought was not attainable when I was a kid trick-or-treating.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So the mindset is so powerful, because, you know, there's science that's out there that talks about how when they give news to cancer patients that they're dealing with cancer, they said they can go out and look up the research and read it. They talk about how people that come in there and have a good family support system, but people are positively talking to them and they are positively talking to themselves, those people most times survive, even going through chemo and radiation. And I can't remember if it's Milton's law. I'm trying to remember whose law it was. I don't want to misquote it, but there's a scientific study that was done out there where they would take swabs of rice, take rice and put it in a petri dish, right? And they put a little water in there and close it up. And every day someone would come and speak terrible words to it. You're terrible, you're ugly, you're hideous, you're this, just terrible things to it. And what they looked at, when they looked at the molecular structure of the growth that happened in there, it looked disgusting. It was dark. It looked gross.
Wow.
But then on the other side, they did a study and then they did the same thing, but these people spoke positively to the petri dish with water and rice in it. And in that situation, the crystals, the things that were formed out of were beautiful. They were cool looking. They formed different links than what was done in the opposite manner. So it matters how you think. And so, because when you start thinking a certain way, you'll start speaking a certain way.
Yeah.
And as you think, you're going to speak. When you speak, you're going to hear it.
Yeah.
And reinforce or break down the mindset that you have. You're either going to reinforce the poor mindset, or you're going to reinforce and break down that poverty mindset and begin building a wealth one.
Yeah.
Madison, to answer your question, I would say why we need to make a mindset shift from constantly getting in and out of debt. When you are generally people spend debt money on liabilities. That means they are things that do not go up in value. So we are spending our money to make other people wealthy.
Yeah.
So why you need to get out of that is because you're supposed to prioritize getting yourself wealthy.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we don't care about other people, because we do. We give. We take care of other people, but we first have to take care of ourselves. It's just like the thing they tell you in the airplane. If these masks drop, you need to take care of yourself first. And quite frankly, we share this when it comes to the poverty mindset, that the reason why a lot of families stay impoverished is because no one ever feels allowed to put the mask on.
They're constantly trying to put the mask on
I
others.
constantly have to, no, I got to take care of you. Well, I can't help you if I'm choking. I can't,
Right.
if I can't breathe, I can't do any good. And ultimately, we want people to start seeing themselves that you're supposed to have more, but you can't have more if you're always spending more than you make. You'll never get to that place where you can really be a blessing to somebody else. I mean, yes, your $20 here and there might help somebody, but if they really needed something, you couldn't answer if you're constantly in and out of debt. You can't take care of your parents when they're older if you can't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
That's so good. And man, and I just recommend, if you're listening to this, sign up for their next course, take their introductory course, sign up for the next level course and everything, because I mean, just the 3 levels of the 3, persons, however you explain that, the 3 U's, that was so valuable. And I love that part of it. And as you can see, this is the reason why people are knocking on their doors right now, reaching out to them to go to their seminars, to get personal counseling. And it's just a very, very well done, guys. And one final thing to wrap up on our mindset session right here. We're about running out of time. So with all the counseling, and I don't want to say counseling, let's say coaching, with all the coaching that you guys do, what would you say, or what would you recognize is the hardest, either the hardest thing, or when you're trying to get somebody else to change the mindset? What advice do you give them? What coaching do you give them to help them? Because I think that's got to be one of the biggest challenges, is trying to get somebody to change their own mindset, because you can't do it for them. So what's the biggest challenge or advice that you would give Hurdle on that, helping people?
I would say every person that comes here ironically has one of the same issues. There will always be one other person in their family that they'll say, I really need my mom to get this. I really need my sister, my dad. And we're like, you can't change them. Like, you can't. You have to change you. And so we actually meet with this group of people, the ones who've all gone through it. We still talk on a regular basis. And so the other day, one of them came up to me and was like, you'll never guess what. I got the chance to talk to my parents, and I've been trying to tell them what they need to do, but they won't listen to me. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. And she goes, I haven't said anything for months. And all of a sudden they're like, so what are you doing? I think we all need to make a change. So they decided, by watching her change, that triggered an initiation to say, something's different about you. What are you doing that we're not doing? How can we change? And that was when she let go and stopped, trying to, I told her, I said, even God doesn't change people. Like, that's a personal decision. He lets us own that. So when she stepped back and didn't focus on trying to change others, but she just focused on changing herself, it changed the surroundings to where her family would be even open to receive it.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. I don't know if I have anything really to add to that. I mean, it's the biggest thing I would tell people is, if you don't change, if you don't change, you'll never get anything that you want in your head or in your heart or in your dreams out of life. You have to change. You have to. And that's one of probably the biggest things I tell them. I'm like, no one's going to do this for you.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've been saying a lot lately is, no one's going to save you.
Yeah.
It hurts. It sounds cruel, but it's the truth. No one is coming to save you, to get you out of your financial situation, to get you out of that poor relationship, to get you, no matter what it is you're in, no one's coming to save you. You're eventually going to have to make a decision, because people can rescue you out of, there's a proverb that says, you help a man out of a hole once, you have to do it again and again and again. And what it's basically telling us is that it's not about you helping them. That's not a bad thing. The bad thing is that if you can keep helping them, but until they're ready in their own head, in their own mind, so they've actually made a decision to change, they won't. And you'll continue to have to keep pulling them out of that ditch over and over and over and again. And sometimes the best thing for them is to leave them there. Yeah. And that's tough.
That's tough.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe just sit at the top of the hole and wait for them to come to the conclusion on their own.
Say encouraging words to them.
You can do
Where
it.
you're at. Oh,
Yeah, so we're gonna put all their information at the bottom, post that underneath, so you guys know how to reach out to Kylan and Rebecca. I would just strongly encourage you guys to plug into their system. They will help you as far as they can. I mean, you guys even have, what is that, a monthly phone call or?
mhm.
Yeah, monthly
Yes.
opportunity. I mean, not many people open up to this. I mean, you guys are able to tap into such wealth, wisdom. I mean, their story is incredible. They've been there, done that, and are on their way to better, bigger, and better as well. So they're on the
Yeah.
move. They haven't arrived. I love being around people like that, and so yeah, I can't say enough good things about them. I'm just so excited that you guys launched that Money Masters.
Yeah.
uh,
Well, and thank
program.
you guys so much for being on. We appreciate you so much. We appreciate your time. And we're just happy to have you on. And for all the people viewing, thank you for watching Legacy Builders. We'll see you next time. Thank you guys so much for joining us today on the Legacy Builders podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you are notified when a new episode is posted. Now go out and take your first steps in building your family's legacy.